Hey, this is Nik Eakle. I'm the coordinator of the Eastmont Computer Clubhouse in Oakland, California, and I'm going to show you how to vectorize your cartoons. Alright, when you draw cartoons, I highly recommend you use a colored pencil to sketch them out. Don't use a graphite pencil, and one of the biggest reasons is graphite looks black. So once you ink in your picture, your graphite lines, all that sketch fuzzy lines behind it, are part of your picture. And you're going to have to spend a lot of time erasing it and trying to get it off of there. And it's just a huge hassle, if not impossible to do. So I highly recommend just using a colored pencil to do this. Colored pencils are also good because they're very light on paper. So you're less likely to get indentation or tears in your paper if you draw hard. So to use a colored pencil, I recommend using light colors such as yellow, green, blue, orange, red, things like that. Do not use dark colored pencils because they'll tend to show up as almost a gray or a black color on your paper once you remove the color. To avoid that, always use light colored pencils to sketch. Once I have my character sketched on the paper, I'm going to use a Papermate Flare M black pen to do the ink outlines over my sketch lines that are on the paper. Papermate Flare M pens are really good because they're cheap. First of all, they're not very expensive to buy. And second of all, they don't leak through the paper and they don't smear. So they're great to draw all over, especially if you're moving your hand over the paper. You don't have to worry about smudge marks or anything like that. It dries instantly and it's not going to bleed through onto the table unless you just push really, really hard. Go ahead and trace over where you want your final lines to be right over your colored pencil on your paper. And you should have something like this. Once you have your character inked in, let's take it into a scanner and scan it into Photoshop. If you want to scan it into Photoshop and you have your scanner hooked up to your computer, it might show up in Photoshop by going to File, Import, and if you do have your scanner hooked up properly, it should appear in here and you can actually scan it directly into Photoshop. However, I don't have my scanner hooked up to the computer, so I scanned it as a file. To load this thing into Photoshop, I'm going to go to File, Open, or I can just press Control and O on my keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and load in the picture that I scanned. And there it is. I can see right now it's only 16.7% of its actual size. If I use my magnifying glass or zoom tool, I can also zoom in on it quite a bit. To zoom out, you want to hold Alt, and the plus turns into a minus, and I can zoom back out or back in by letting go of Alt. So I can see this picture is huge. If I go into full size, which is 100%, this drawing's quite large. I don't want it that big because when you vectorize drawings that are this large, they tend to look a little bit icky and bumpy and bubbly. So I'm going to reduce this resolution by half. And the way I'm going to do that is by going up to Image, Image Size, and I'm going to change the resolution to 150. If you scanned it at a high resolution, you might want to do that. If your scanner lets you, you might want to scan it as a resolution of 100 or 150 to do this vectorizing. So 150 is good. Once I click OK, my drawing should be half the size. And it is. So what I want to do now is use my rectangular marquee tool over here in my toolbox, or I can just press M on my keyboard to select it. I'm going to take that tool and put a box around my character by clicking in one corner and dragging to the other corner, making sure I'm not cutting off any parts of his body in this square. And that looks good, so I'm going to let go. Now that I have this box around my character, I want to crop it and get rid of all this stuff around the picture that I don't need. And the way we go ahead and do this is you're going to go up to Image and you're going to go to Crop. Once you click crop, it will chop your picture down to just what's in the square. That's the only thing it's going to leave. So I'm going to click crop. My drawing is now cropped. The next thing I want to do is get rid of this orange stuff, the colored pencil marks on my drawing that I used to sketch it. I'm going to remove this by going to Image, Adjustments, and then Hue and Saturation. You can also do this by pressing Control U on your keyboard to bring up the same hue and saturation options. Alright, now that I have my options here, I'm going to change master to red, and I'm going to take my lightness bar and bring it all the way to +100. And you'll see a lot of the red on my picture went away. Now I'm going to go down to yellow, and bring the lightness all the way up to plus 100 as well. I'm going to go ahead and do this to all the colors even though I don't see them, and the reason why is sometimes when you scan a picture you get a little blue or green hue just from the scanner itself, and this is one way to completely get rid of it and turn your picture into just black and white drawing. And the last color is magentas. Alright, once you have all those colors done, click OK. And your drawing should be left with just black ink lines on white paper. And that's exactly what we want. So now that I have that perfect, I'm going to go ahead and save it by going to File, Save As. And I'm going to give it a different name than the one I scanned so I don't overwrite it. And I'm just going to call this one Bird Ink, so it stands out and I have both files. Click Save. And if you saved as a TIFF, you want the image compression to be none. If you saved as a PSD, you don't have to worry about that. But only save as a TIFF or a PSD. Do not use any other formats for this because they don't turn out as well. I'm going to click OK. And now I can shut down my picture in Adobe Photoshop. Next thing, I'm going to go over to Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to open up that drawing that I just saved from Photoshop. I can do this by going to File, Open, or I can just press Control-O on my keyboard and bring in that picture by double-clicking it. Alright, now that I have it in Adobe Illustrator, I want to get this picture to be vectorized so I can enlarge it any size and it will never look pixelated or have problems with blurriness or anything like that. So what I'm going to do first is, if I have my selection tool, I'm going to go ahead and click my picture just once. And when I do, these little boxes will appear around the corner. Once you have that, that's how it should be. Go over to Object and go down to Live Trace and then go up to Make and click Make. Once you do, you'll notice your drawing becomes smooth and you have nice black lines on there. It doesn't look bumpy. You don't see any ink blots that you got in Photoshop when you drew it. It should be a perfect vectorized, smooth looking drawing. I like it, so I'm going to go ahead and save it. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. And in the Save As type down here, you want to change Adobe Illustrator to Adobe PDF. And I'm also going to rename it from Bird Ink to Bird Vector, just as my own reference, so when I see it I know exactly that's the vectorized file. Go ahead and click Save, and Save PDF when the next prompt pops up. And there you go, you got a saved vectorized drawing. I'm going to show you one of the benefits of vectorizing your artwork. So I'm going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to take the Bird Ink picture that I saved from Photoshop before I vectorized it. I'm going to pull it into Photoshop. Let it open. Alright, and I'm going to zoom in to 100%. And that's as big as it gets. You'll notice as I zoom in further, you can really start seeing the pixels for everything. And that's a bitmap type image, it's not vectorized. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull in the one that I saved from Adobe Illustrator after I vectorized it, and you're going to see a difference. The main difference between importing in a bitmapped image and a vectorized image is Photoshop will ask you to specify the size of the image before it brings it in and turns it into a bitmap. This is great because you can specify any size you want. For example, right here it tells me the image is 5.773 inches by 5.367 inches and the resolution is 300 dpi. I can go ahead and tell it, no, I want you to bring it in as 10 inches at a resolution of, let's say, 600 dpi. I'll click OK. Photoshop might take a minute as it's rasterizing this file to bring it in. And here's my bird. Now you'll notice up at the top it says it's only 12.5% of the actual size. So watch what happens if I go into 100% size. Look how clean those edges are. Everything's very sharp, very smooth. So this is a good thing to do if you want to go ahead and color your image, is bring it into Photoshop as a really high resolution and inch sized, and it will all look really good. Hope this helps you with your cartoons. Bye.